Hi everyone, I'm going to be reading from Molly's Pilgrim, and you can follow along in your book at home or you can follow along in the video here. I didn't like the school in Winter Hill. In Winter Hill, they laughed at me. Elizabeth laughed most of all. I never raised my hand to answer a question, but when Mrs. Stickley called on me, I had to say something. My English wasn't perfect yet, so Elizabeth always giggled at whatever I said. Mrs. Stickley would stare at her, and then she'd shut up. But later, in the schoolyard, she'd say, "You talk funny, Molly. You look funny, Molly." And then she'd sing a song. Jolly Molly, your eyes are awfully small. Jolly Molly, your nose is awfully tall. Hilda and Kitty would sing the song too, and sometimes Faye and Emma. They all admired Elizabeth. She brought peppermint sticks to school and handed them out to all her friends at recess. One day, Elizabeth and Hilda followed me halfway home, singing that terrible song. Jolly Molly, your eyes are awfully small. Jolly Molly, your nose is awfully tall. I started to run. When I got to our apartment, I bursted into tears. It was all right. I could cry in front of my mother. She put her arms around me. I leaned my head against her chest. She felt like a big soft cushion. "Shane, Kate, what's the matter?" she asked. My mother didn't speak much English. She talked to me in Yiddish. "Mama, let's go back to New York City," I said. "In this third grade, there aren't any other Jewish children. I don't talk like the other girls. They make fun of me. I hate going to school." "Oh, Makala," Mama said, "we can't go back to New York City. In New York, Papa had to work in a factory. We had to live in a poor tenement house. Here in Winter Hill, Papa has a good job in Mr. Boysk's store downstairs. And Mr. Boytsky even lets us live in this nice apartment." "Well, then, let's go back to Gorodok," I suggested. "We only came to this country last winter. I bet we could still get our old house back." "If the Kazakhs haven't burned it down," Mama snapped. "They burned the synagogue. One day, who knows, they would have burned us. May they grow like onions with their heads in the ground." I had known all along we couldn't go back to Russia. "In Gorodok, Jewish girls don't get to go to school at all," Mama went on. "They have to grow up ignorant like donkeys. I'll go to your school. I'll talk to the teacher. She'll make those Huskadanks stop teasing you." "No, Mama, no," I interrupted quickly. "We don't have to do that." I didn't want Mrs. Stickley or Elizabeth to see Mama. She didn't talk like the other mothers. She hardly talked English at all. She didn't look like them either. "I'll be all right," I said. "I'll talk to Mrs. Stickley myself." But of course I didn't. I dragged myself back to the school day after day. Nothing changed. But I didn't say another word about it to Mama. Then, one day in November, during reading, Mrs. Stickley said, "Open your books to page 132. It was a new story. I liked when we started new stories. "You may begin, Molly," Miss Stickley said. I looked at the title. The first The first the I shook my head. Mrs. Stickley, I said, I don't know that word. It's a hard word, Molly, Mrs. Stickley said, especially if you haven't seen it before. Who can tell Molly what the word is? Several hands shot up. Miss Stickley called on Elizabeth. Thanksgiving, she announced, tossing her long black corkscrew curls. I thought everyone knew that. Thanksgiving? I repeated. Thanksgiving? What's Thanksgiving? Elizabeth snorted. You don't even know about Thanksgiving? I guess you people don't celebrate American holidays. Mrs. Stickley ignored Elizabeth. The story will explain the words, Molly, she said to me. Go ahead, start reading. I read 3 sentences. I don't stumble over any more words. When Miss Stickley told Arthur to read, we took turns. It was a good story. It was about the Pilgrims and how they started the holiday of Thanksgiving. I had never heard of Pilgrims before. Now, children, Miss Stickley said when the reading lesson was over, I'm tired of decorating the room with paper turkeys and paper pumpkins every Thanksgiving. I thought it would be fun to do something different this year. She pointed to the sand table at the back of the room. It had stood empty since September. We'll make a model of the Pilgrim village at Plymouth, Massachusetts, celebrating the first Thanksgiving. She sounded excited. We'll make the houses and the church here in school. But I want you to make the people at home. You can make dolls out of clothespins. The boys can make Indians and the girls can make pilgrims. Her eyes moved from one face to another. If you sit in row 1, 2, or 3, make a woman. If you sit in row 4, 5, or 6, make a man. I sat in row 2. I had to make a pilgrim woman. Bring your dolls tomorrow, Miss Stickley said. Then I'll show you how to make houses out of cardboard. When I got home, Mama said to me, just like always, Nal Shalkit. Do you have any homework? I need a clothespin, I said. A clothespin? What kind of homework is a clothespin? I have to make a doll out of it. A pilgrim doll. Mama frowned. Oh, Makalach, what's a pilgrim? I searched for the words to explain pilgrim to Mama. Pilgrims came to this country from the other side, I said.